Today, on Be Something Wonderful, how action is an illusion and why that matters when manifesting. I am your host, Tom Karen, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. I heard from one of you who said, Tom, you mentioned in one of your videos that action is an illusion. And you talked about inspired action, the difference between inspired action and other action, meaning forced action. And I get it, that inspired action is aligned action, being aligned with your higher self. You also mentioned that it really doesn't matter what action you take, as long as you're aligned with your wish fulfilled, as long as you're aligned with your desire, and you move in sync with that greater you, that your higher self. So my question is then, what do you really mean by action is an illusion? If you could just unpack that a little bit more. Well, today, guys, we're going to unpack that and more. Here's what I want to say. Action's an illusion, but here's why. That you think you're moving through time and space, right, as you go about your life. But really, you're not. What you're really doing is you're perceiving through time and space. Hear this. Remember, everything's within you. The 3D world, the universe, the illusion of action is all within you. You stream that. You create that perception of movement. You create the time and space. You create the reality. You create the events, the circumstances, conditions, and you create the movement. It's all an illusion, all perceived. So you're not moving through time and space, really. You're perceiving through time and space. Hear this. Remember, we said the script has been written. Frozen in time, right? Frozen frames that make up a specific film roll, lifeline. We talked about that infinity, or the field of infinite possibilities, contains infinite amount of alternative realities, or lifelines, or film rolls, that is your life, right? And if you had an aerial view of infinity, or the eternity archive, you'd see all the film rolls unrolled, all the potential infinite lifelines you could live with all the slides. You'd see them, all those slides, as points in, quote, time, but there is no time. So they're just frozen points in what we call the eternity archive, or what we call space, but there is no space either, right? It's all, what is all this? It's all information and energy. And it only becomes something when you light it up and you put your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions on it. Then it's streamed to your consciousness and it becomes this illusion of manifested reality. This is big. See, here's two possible lifelines, right? Call this the infinity, alternative space, and think that you have an infinite amount, right? That current frame is where you are. Right? And then you feel like you're moving within that current frame. And sometimes you just focus on moving within the current frame, meaning you try to change already manifested reality by trying to change things while in that current frame. That keeps you frozen in that lifeline. Right? How do you move? You move by lighting up your future, lighting up that future frame, imagining your wish fulfilled. But you don't move in terms of taking action how we think of it in 3D. 3D action's an illusion, right? We move with our thoughts, feelings, and assumptions. We move within. And then we're on a lifeline then that's different than where we were, because we've changed our assumptions, we've changed our beliefs, we've changed our thoughts and feelings, and who we think we are, who we believe we are, and what we believe we have, right? That's powerful. All movement in 3D is within the current frame when you're trying to make something happen. That's why when you're trying to make something happen and make something manifest, you're just battling what is current manifested reality, and you get stuck or bound to that current frame, right? We've talked about that, right? But think of infinity, or the alternative space, as information, energy, and potential. It's all pure potential. Is that energy moving? Yes, it's vibrating, but it doesn't mean it's going from here to there, because there is no here to there. Hear this. There's no here or there or this or that. It's infinity. It's all one. It's all whole. Right? There's nowhere to go. Right? There is no this and that. It's all one. It's just energy. It's pure potential. It's information. So infinity, or alternative space, contains an infinite number of potential alternatives or lifelines of film rolls. Each lifeline, each film roll of your life has a unique script and scenery. Think of the script as a life path that you have the illusion of moving along. But remember, you're not moving. It's all just there. It's not here or there. It just all is. Right? There's no time, there's no this or that, it just is, right? Just all pure potential. And then the scenery would be the external or the outer manifestation of the form, the hue of your outer world, right? That would be the scenery. So when the scenery starts changing, you know you're on a different script. The scenery has changed. And then even the script has changed, right? And so let's unpack this a little bit more. Let's really do an unpacking today. And Vadim Zeland, in his book Reality Transurfing, which a lot of this comes from, he does this theater analogy. This really gives you an idea how it works, right? Again, we have the lifelines or the film rolls. Think of the lifelines are all in parallel to each other. And when you move to the next parallel lifeline. So if it's a desire or a wish that's very different than the life you're living, well, you don't, unless you quantum leap, which we'll talk about in future videos. Generally, you keep your focus on that future frame. You light up your future frame. You imagine your wish fulfilled. You keep rolling that end, keeping that end in mind as if you already are that, and then you start moving lifelines closer to your desired reality. That gives the illusion of movement, and that gives the illusion of time. Right? Movement in space, and it gives you the illusion of time because the lifeline is even though there is no such thing as space in that way, is further away. Further away from what? Further away from your inner state. So how do you move? You move within. This is big. Watching a play, so he uses his theater analogy. Think of the lifeline you're on that you watched a play. You enjoyed it. You went to the theater, you watched a play. Then you go back the next day to the same theater, but this time the scenery is different on the stage. They've changed the scenery. That's the equivalent of you moving to a parallel lifeline that's very close to your current lifeline or very close to your current film roll. The scripts are very similar, but the scenery is different. There's something that's changed in the hue. Right? Do you see this, guys? It's brilliant, right? The hue of reality has changed, but the script is similar. This is big. Then maybe you go again to next theater season. You go again but they have the same actors. It's the same theater, but the script has been changed. They changed the script of the play. That's you moving further away from the lifeline that you were on when you began imagining your wish fulfilled and began lighting up your future slide or your future end. You're moving closer to your wish fulfilled. Right here it is. Right now you're on a lifeline situated further away from where you started, but closer. Hear this. Further away from where you started, but closer to your wish fulfilled, closer to your desired reality. Right. And here's an example. One of the subscribers wrote that, asked me about shifting realities and all that, and we talked about it. And then she went and imagined herself. A new version of herself, a new reality where she had a more interesting and fascinating life, where she had more time to spend with her son, right? Where she was more carefree, right? Where she had a career that was more satisfying than what she was in. Well, then she writes me the next day, after doing that, she got fired from her job, out of the blue, I think. And so there it is. She imagined it in the job that wasn't satisfying, that wasn't fascinating. Well, she got fired. That's the obvious. Her scenery and the script has changed, right? She no longer has the scenery of that job, but the script definitely has changed. She's no longer in that job. And I will have to watch to see as she moves, right, to her desired reality. Then imagine this. The next time you go, you watch the same production. It's the same production, but in a different theater. So you're watching the same play in a different theater, and they're different actors, and there's a different interpretation of the entire play. Now you're really farther away from where you started, and you're much closer now to your wish fulfilled if you haven't already manifested it. See this, guys, how it works? That's how it works. If you think of the script and the scenery as what's changing, right? But what's really moving? It's you moving within. That's what movement's all about. That's what it really means. Let's unpack this a little bit more. It's not you or matter, meaning material matter, that is moving. It's your potential. Hear this. It's your potential to be, do, or have whatever your heart desires based on your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, assumptions about yourself that moves. It's the potential that moves. Wow. How do we capture this? How do we get a good example? Well, Vadim Zeland gives us a brilliant example, and I have now made it come to life for you so you can see this. Imagine then there's a water pipe with water in it, okay? Imagine that the water pipe is the alternative space that contains all potential realities. It's the field of infinite possibilities, right? It's what we would call the divine matrix or source energy. And in there is water. That water represents the source energy, right? Within that space is the information, the energy, source energy. That's alternative space. And then there's a cooling ring, right? Look at the cooling ring, right? That runs through the pipe. The cooling ring is the only thing that moves. And as the cooling ring moves along the alternative space, it freezes the water. And it freezes it into ice cubes or frozen water molecules. Remember, the water molecules are always in a freeze state. They're not moving, right? They're not moving, they're just there in a free state, right? They're pure potential of source energy. Imagine that water as pure potential, right? The potential is made up of people, events, and circumstances, but they're not manifested. Anything's possible with that energy, right? The frozen water crystal, when the cooling ring moves, it freezes the water, right? In that moment, think of a frozen frame in time. The frozen water crystal is material 3D manifestation of some alternative reality. Wow, that's big. The cooling ring are your thoughts, feelings, assumptions, and beliefs. The cooling ring is using your thoughts, feelings, assumptions, and beliefs to freeze that potential. Hear this. So remember, it's the potential that's really moving. The ice cube doesn't move. There's not another ice cube, right? Right? There's not just one ice cube or one frozen crystal moving through the pipe. That as soon as that cooling ring moves to the next spot, that water dissolves, right? It goes back into source energy. It goes back into pure potential. That's big. That's how it works, right? And then as you move with your thoughts and feelings, you freeze another water crystal into manifested reality. That's big. So hear this. As the cooling ring passes through a specific section of the pipe, or in other words, of the alternative space, okay, the water molecules inside the ring solidify. The water molecules represent pure potential of source energy, or the potential for people, events, and circumstances in 3D. Right? So the water molecules inside the ring solidify as a frozen crystal. As the ring moves, the crystal melts behind it as they are free again. So it's not the water doesn't move, alternative reality or alternative space doesn't move, source energy doesn't move. It vibrates, but it doesn't move, right? And there's not an infinite number of ice cubes or water crystals. The water crystal dissolves as soon as the cooling ring moves. What moves then? You do. Your inner state, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs move. And that's what causes the illusion of action. Hear this, because it manifests as a new potential, another infinite potential in alternative space or infinity. Wow, that's big. Okay, so let's move on here, guys. So the frozen water crystal manifested, or in other words, manifested reality, right? As soon as that thing freezes, doesn't move, or in other words, it's not one single ice cube moving through the pipe, but it is the potential to create the frozen manifested state. Hear that as that cooling ring, as it moves, that it's all potential around it. The only thing that's not potential anymore is the frozen crystal. That's manifested reality, right? But as it moves forward, that frozen crystal dissolves back into infinity. and then freezes another potential alternative in front of it, right? Through your thoughts, feelings, assumptions, and belief, your inner state of being moves. That's why we're always talking about moving within. It's the only thing that really actually does move. And it's not movement in the terms of what you think of it from your 3D mind, right? You're moving in potential, right? You're moving the potential within you. Wow, that's big, right? There's the cooling ring, right? That represents your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions and beliefs of who you, in concept of yourself and the world around you, right? The water crystal is the manifested reality that doesn't move. The source energy doesn't move, this water within the pipe. It's the energy of force. It vibrates, right? But it doesn't move. It's not moving from a here to there. There is no here or there. There is no now and then. There's only now. And that's all there is, right? And alternative space or infinity doesn't move, right? Nothing does, right? This is big. That really, guys, is how action is an illusion and why that matters when manifesting. I am your host, Tom Karen, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share a video. That's how we get our message out. Hit us up on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful, on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Karen, our website at tomkaren.com or besomethingwonderful.com, or write me anytime at info@besomethingwonderful.com. I always love to hear from you. Guys, don't forget to share our channel with your friends, with your family, with your co-workers. Share our videos on your social media. Get the word out. That's how we grow. Until next time, with great love, this is Tom. See you soon.